Welcome back to We Are Trailer Park Girls, and we talk about Chad Daybell.
We do. In our tank tops, because we're hookers.
See?
Look at our porn shoulders. Look at them.
Porn shoulders. Chad Daybell had his fucking arraignment. See Guy Daybell
Well,
get arraigned.
yes, he got arraigned. Before we cover his arraignment, we were gonna review some Lori things.
Because, remember, Chad had an initial appearance.
Lori did not, because
Lori got continued.
has been deemed... Well, she's not competent
there.
right now to stand trial.
And what does that mean in Idaho? What do we care about mentally?
Basically that like, she probably is pretending she doesn't know she's in jail.
Uh-huh.
She's probably pretending that, she's at a Happy Mormon dance or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, this alarms jail staff because most people in jail are not singing and dancing about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, she's been evaluated and she has been committed. The judge signed the order. She's been committed to a state mental facility, the care of the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, to restore her mental competency for up to 90 days. She gets 3 months to get it together.
To basically be like, beat you on trial for murder. Not if you agree.
Yeah.
Because right now, apparently, she's like, they're like, not if you agree. And she's like, I like chicken.
No, she's probably like, Chad prophesied and he might have been off by a year, but in July, the world is going to end and me being in jail is not going to matter. And I'm going to be in the celestial kingdom with Moroni and Joseph Smith and Nephi. Just for example. Lori Vallow, a.k.a. Daybell, apparently is now officially Daybell. I think her attorney somehow went to the Social Security office in the DMV for her. I really think that this is a strategy of hers to, hitch her wagon to Chatty Daddy.
Mm.
And I think Chad's trying to get as much distance as he can. Do you think I'm wrong?
Okay, wait. When did they...
They got married like 10 days after Tammy died.
How long was that after the kids were probably...
It was probably like 3 weeks.
So...
No, it was more like a month from when Tylee died.
So do we think that something happened making them think that law enforcement or somebody was on to them, so they got married so they can't testify against each other?
Yeah, but they're co-defendants, so it doesn't matter if they testify. There's going to be other people who are going to testify that these two fuckwads did it.
But a lot of people who commit crimes think, oh, if we get married, we can't testify against each other. Like, do we think they're that smart?
Maybe. I mean, I think that Chad supposedly said that they had been, sealed in a previous mortal probation because it's not past lives. It's totally different. It's not the same thing, guys.
I was going to say, excuse me, what the fuck did you just say? Mortal probation?
Yes, Chad believed that, back up. This is going to turn into a long-ass video if I keep explaining these things.
That's okay. We're going to stay on topic more.
So...
And this is related because I'm fascinated.
Okay, so Mormons believe that if you die, if you're Mormon and you get baptized and then you do the weird temple rituals, if you want to know about the weird temple rituals, look up New Name Noah on YouTube and watch the weird temple rituals. I could not finish them. They creeped me out.
We should do a react video to his TikToks.
Oh, we should. I love New Name Noah. I'm probably going to get heat for that because people don't like him. But he's an ass and I'm okay with it. Yeah, I know he's an ass. I think if you told him he was an ass, he'd be like, yeah, I'm an ass. But anyway, so look up New Name Noah if you want to learn about the Mormon temple rituals. And then, so Mormons believe if you get baptized, you do these temple rituals, you get married in the temple, eventually you'll go to the celestial kingdom, and then you'll become a god. And you'll be able to have your own planets and your own universes, and it'll go on forever and ever and ever. And that, God was once a man, and anyway, Christians find such philosophy blasphemous, but that's not really my point. But people think, how can I possibly learn? Like, this is like Chad's theology, and I'm sure there's other people who share it. That you can't, how can you possibly learn everything you need to know to be a god in just one earth life? Like, in, say, best case scenario, you live 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to learn everything to be a god in 100 years? So clearly, you must come back and do it again, is their
Okay.
belief, I guess. I think. I'm not positive.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's kind of warped.
I mean, it kind of sounds like,
Reincarnation?
that and, like, making excuses for being a douchebag, too.
Right.
Like,
I gotta come back and do this again.
Oh, darn, I killed my lover's children. At least I get to come back and do it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if he killed any of his lover's children or a wife in any of him's past lives.
We could write him a letter and ask.
We should send him a letter.
Do you know how much I'd fucking laugh if we got a response?
Oh my god, it would make my day.
We could just send him a plain old, neutral
Okay.
letter and just see if we can get a fucking response.
I feel like we're more likely to get a response if we appeal to him's religious beliefs and say that we see him as a prophet or some such nonsense. So did we pretty much cover everything with Lori we wanted to cover? Maximum, she's gonna be at the state hospital for 9 months.
Yeah, because after, I don't know if you said it, after 90 days, if she's still, then...
She can have up to another 180 days. So max 9 months. She's not dangerously mentally ill.
How the hell do you pronounce it when it's like that?
Indigency.
Never gonna happen.
She has been declared indigent.
Igneous. I can't say indigent. Indignant. Fuck me.
Not indigenous, though. Anyway. So I think that's about all we have on Lori. Do you want me to explain the purposes of an arraignment in district court?
Yes, please.
So...
You make smarter words.
Okay. So when you are arraigned in district court, probable cause has been found that you committed the act you're accused of. Which just means, more than likely or not, you fucking did it, you loser.
Right.
There
is reason to believe.
Yes.
You did the thing.
The arrows are pointing at you. But also maybe a few other people, but mostly at you. So the purpose...
Lindsay Blake. That's her name.
Oh, that's the other prosecutor. Yeah, I like her. Her soap outfit.
Uh-huh.
So the purpose of your arraignment in district court is to review your rights. Usually the judges have something printed out that they'll read to you. Well, just read. If there's a bunch of people getting arraigned at the same time, they'll tell everyone to pay attention.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read these rights once instead of reading
them 17 times. Is this the standard rights in the United States Constitution?
Pretty much Idaho standard rights. They'll read you your charging document. You can waive the reading of that. Most people, unless they're psychopaths, waive the reading. And then, the judge will summarize the charges and give them the minimum and maximum. If there's a minimum, they'll give them the minimum penalty. Minimum. And they will always give the maximum penalty. They will read it.
Mm-hmm.
So, after that, the defendant they have 3 choices. They can plead guilty, not guilty, or stand silent, or as the judge said today, or not enter a plea at all. I have always heard judges say, or you may stand silent, and I will enter not guilty plea on your behalf.
I appreciate not enter a plea at all.
I mean, people have their reasons for doing what they do. I think people who've committed a crime would rather stand silent sometimes. But I think sometimes their attorney's like, well, you plead not guilty now. We go through the process. It's really not a big deal. It's just preserving your rights. You can plead not guilty.
Lori Eisenberg stood silent, didn't she?
Probably, because she's a wank.
Yeah, she is a wank. I just vaguely remember...
She probably did.
That she stood silent, and her attorney that looks defeated on a daily basis anyway, let alone defending her.
Okay, that attorney...
was extra defeated.
He has this habit of just, staring off into space, okay? He just...
Yeah, I've noticed.
like that, one time I was clerking a hearing, and I swear he was staring at, like, I was like, do I have a tit out? Like, why is this man staring at me? And, like, I mean, I wasn't wearing anything that my tit was just gonna
Right.
fall out of, but I'm like, what
But
the...
you have that, like, where's the tit?
Right, like, what the fuck's going on? Do I have a booger? Like...
Were you wearing, was it the elephant shirt?
No, I mean, no, I don't think it was. It was not the strategically placed elephants. Anyway, that's a good story we can tell later.
Yeah.
But he just stares.
Mm.
And then I realized that I just happened to be in the direction he was.
You were in his staring path.
Yes. He was not looking at me, he was looking through me.
Yeah. You were not there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate that, though.
Yeah.
So,
He's actually a very good attorney.
should we play that portion of the hearing?
So I think I went over... Yeah, I mean, I basically reviewed... Okay, so if someone either pleads not guilty or stands silent, normally at the arraignment, the judge will set a pretrial conference and a jury trial. In a big case like this that's going to have a lot of evidence, is not going to be, we'll say, less than a week-long trial. Because I feel like this trial's probably going to be a month or two. Would be, I mean, at least that's what they're going to schedule for.
Well, and, okay, I'm just assuming from, like, TV interviews and stuff, people that are getting called as witnesses are gonna testify all effing day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like...
Well, think, like, was the prelim 1 day, or did the prelim end up taking 2 days? For the evidence destruction cases.
I think it was 1.
It was 1, but it was a full 1 day, and that was just to establish probable cause for destroying or... Yeah, destroying
Not
or
desecrating,
concealing.
but basically desecrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you're going to have a lot more evidence for a jury than you will for just a prelim with a judge.
Mm.
Because a judge is much more familiar with the legal standard.
Is the jury gonna get sequestered in Rexburg?
It'd be the worst place to be sequestered.
Is there a Best Western?
I don't know. When I went to Rexburg, we made our reservations too late, and we had to stay in a motel in Idaho Falls.
Oh. Well.
Because, everyone was dropping their kids off to college.
Hmm.
So maybe if they don't schedule the trial around...
Drop off or pick up
Right.
time?
But BYU Idaho does the weird 3 semesters, so... I mean,
That
I guess
adds a
technically
complication.
they're trimesters.
Because you're pregnant with the Lord.
Sure.
I don't know.
I don't know. Well, they do a summer... They do spring, summer, and fall.
Mm.
So, like, fall and spring are normal, and then they do a summer... Anyway, it's weird.
Mm.
Ugh. So...
Anyways.
I mean, I'm sure when you are the court, you can figure out how to get motel rooms for jurors if need be.
Mm.
I really still think they're going to have to do a change of venue because the locals there, it's too small of a population.
Right.
So we should just play the East Idaho News. So I guess I'll just tell the people. We tried to do this last night with the court's YouTube video that Diana recorded.
The fucking live stream from the
court.
court.
You could not hear Chad or Mr. Pryor at all.
No.
At all. I mean, one time I heard maybe, not guilty.
But you could see their mouths move, and you could see
Yes.
Mr. Pryor stand up and his mouth moved. But no sound.
It's a workout for Mr. Pryor to stand up, but that's really not the point. So I guess you can play that, and I'm not going to comment during it, because I feel like that just made things complicated last night, and why it was such a freaking train wreck. And then I got bacon beans everywhere. Bacon beans are not what you think they are, people. They're jelly beans that taste like bacon, but they're also sweet, and it's the most disgusting thing I've ever had in the world.
Liquid smoke and sugar and a
Pretty
jelly
much.
bean.
Yeah, that's about it.
Hmm.
It's not, it doesn't taste like bacon.
All rise, this court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Stephen W. Boyce presiding.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, good morning, everyone. We'll be on the record on this matter. This is case CR 22211623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. Mr. Daybell is here present in court, appearing with his attorney, Mr. Pryor. Representing the state is Prosecutor Rob Wood and Lindsay Blake. Mr. Pryor, is your client ready to proceed with arraignment this morning?
We are, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is the state ready to proceed?
We are, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very well. This proceeding's being recorded by the FTR recording system. It's also being live streamed on the court's YouTube channel for public availability of the hearing. In addition, in order to allow public access, we do have limited seating here, and that's consistent with our Supreme Court's operating order for social distancing. So we do have people in the courtroom as well, pursuant to that order. Mr. Daybell, as you know, I'm Judge Boyce. I'm the district judge for Fremont County, and I've been assigned to preside over this case. In a few minutes, I'll arraign you on criminal charges that have been brought against you by the state of Idaho pursuant to an indictment that was issued by a grand jury. Before doing so, I'll explain what will happen at this arraignment and then advise you of your constitutional rights and plea options. If at any time you need to communicate with Mr. Pryor in confidence, please advise me. We can arrange to have the two of you in a separate place outside the record of the court or anyone else and have a personal discussion if you require that during the time of this hearing. In this case, there was an indictment issued by the grand jury on May 25th, 2021, and that indictment sets forth the criminal charges that have been brought against you. The indictment's not evidence, rather it sets forth the criminal charges against you that would be prosecuted by the state of Idaho in this case. Mr. Pryor, have you received a copy of the indictment and reviewed that with your client, Mr. Daybell?
Yes, Your Honor, and at this time, we will waive formal reading of that indictment, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Pryor. In a moment then, Mr. Daybell, I will advise you of the charges that are pending against you and explain the penalties associated with those charges. Next, I'll discuss, Mr. Pryor, your plea options and rights. The purpose of an arraignment is to have you enter a plea to the charges in the indictment. At the end of the arraignment, then, you'll be asked to enter a plea. In that regard, you would have three options. Your first option is that you may enter a plea of not guilty to the charges. If you elect to plead not guilty, then a jury trial and a pretrial conference will be scheduled in this case. Also, by pleading not guilty, you would maintain all of your constitutional rights in this case, which rights were previously explained to you at an initial appearance on May 26, 2021, before the magistrate. Among those rights, you have, I'll go through some of those. You have the right to be presumed innocent. The presumption of innocence is a real and important right which lies at the foundation of our criminal justice system. Therefore, unless you either plead guilty at a later date or the state proves the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt at trial, the presumption of innocence remains in your case. You also have the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of your peers, as well as the right to see, hear, confront, and have your attorney question all witnesses who may be called to testify against you. During the pendency of your case and at trial, you also have the right to be represented by an attorney. As you are in custody, you also have the right to communicate with your attorney at all stages of your case, and reasonable access to communicate with your attorney will be provided throughout these proceedings. At your trial, you would have the right to present evidence in your defense and the right to the subpoena power of this court to compel the attendance of witnesses to testify on your behalf. And finally, if you plead not guilty, you will retain the right to remain silent and exercise the privilege against compulsory self-incrimination. This means that you cannot be required to testify against yourself. However, you may voluntarily take the witness stand at trial if you so choose, but you cannot be compelled to do so. If you decide not to testify in your own behalf, then the prosecuting attorney could make no remarks about your failure to testify and cannot imply to the jury that exercising your constitutional right to remain silent is any indication of your guilt. The second option you would have today is to enter no plea at all. If you decide to do that, the court would enter a plea of not guilty for you, and you'd continue to maintain all of the rights that I've previously explained. And your third option at this arraignment is that you may plead guilty to any or all of the charges. However, it is important that you understand that if you do plead guilty, you would automatically waive rights, including rights under the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution, as well as similar rights contained in the Idaho Constitution. In other words, if you decide to plead guilty, you would waive your right to a trial. There'd be no trial in your case, and you'd no longer be presumed innocent. The state would no longer have the burden of proving the case against you beyond a reasonable doubt. By pleading guilty, you would also give up your Sixth Amendment right to confront your accusers and cross-examine any witnesses against you, and give up your right to offer evidence of your own behalf in response to the state's case against you. You would also waive any defenses you have to the charges contained in the indictment, including any claims that there's a defect in the state of Idaho's case against you, or that you've been treated unfairly by the court. You'd give up also your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent and the privilege against self-incrimination. And if you were to plead guilty, you would also be required to testify under oath concerning the facts of the alleged offenses in this case, to allow me to determine whether or not there's a factual basis for your plea, and whether the plea would be made knowingly, freely, and voluntarily, and to determine whether or not you fully understand the consequences of that plea. Finally, you are advised, if you decided to plead guilty, any testimony that you give while under oath concerning the alleged offenses could and would likely be used against you at a later trial if I were to not accept your plea for some reason, or if you later withdrew your plea. It is very important you understand all the rights and options I just explained to you. Before we go any further then with this proceeding, Mr. Daybell, do you have any questions on any of those rights I've just explained to you?
No.
Very well. Mr. Daybell, in this case, then, you were brought before this court to answer for the indictment filed in this case, which alleges you've committed serious crimes in that 8 felony charges have been filed in the grand jury's indictment. In that indictment, let me ask you a question. Mr. Pryor, do you have that before you? A copy of the indictment?
We do, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Is the defendant's name, Mr. Daybell, spelled and listed correctly on that indictment on the caption?
Yes, Your Honor, it is.
All right, thank you. At this time, then, I will go through the charges that are listed in the indictment and the penalties for each charge. After doing that, then, Mr. Pryor, I'll ask your client how he pleads. So I'll read through the list of charges first, and then I'll ask for the plea after that. Then the indictment that was filed on May 25th, in count 1, charges Mr. Daybell the offenses of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception, both felony counts under Idaho Code 18-1701, 18-4003A, 18-24031, 18-24034A, 18-24071B3. The count in count 1 names Tylee Ryan as the victim on the murder charge, and that count carries a penalty on the murder charge of it is punishable by death or imprisonment for life, and it provides that if the death penalty is not pursued by the state, then the court shall impose a life sentence with a minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. The grand theft portion of that charge has a penalty of up to 14 years of prison and a fine of up to $5,000 and possible restitution. That's a summary of those charges, and you've waived the reading of the charges. So let me ask you on that count 1, Mr. Daybell, do you understand the charge and those possible penalties?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Okay. The next count in the indictment is count 2. That is a count of first-degree murder under Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-4002, 18-4003, subsection A, and 18-4004. And that count names Tylee Ryan as the victim. The possible penalty or punishment for that count is by death or imprisonment for life, and if the death penalty is not pursued, then the court shall impose a life sentence with a minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. Do you understand that charge and the possible penalties?
Yes, Your Honor.
Count 3 of the indictment charges conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception. Those are felonies under the same code sites that were previously listed under count 1. That count names Joshua Jackson Vallow, also known as J.J. Vallow, as the named victim in that count. And the penalty for those charges on the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder is punishable by death or imprisonment for life, And if the death penalty is not pursued, then the court shall impose a life sentence with a minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. On the charge of grand theft by deception, that would have a penalty of up to 14 years in prison and a fine of up to $5,000. Do you understand the charge in count 3 and those possible penalties, Mr. Daybell?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. Count 4 of the indictment charges you with first-degree murder, a felony under the statute previously cited, and the other counts also. That count names J.J. Vallow as the victim, and again, is punishable by death or imprisonment for life. If the death penalty is not pursued, then the court shall impose a life sentence with a minimum period of incarceration of up to 10 years. Do you understand count 4 and the possible penalties, Mr. Daybell?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, the next count listed in the indictment is count 5, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. That count names Tammy Daybell as the named victim. It's charged again under Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-4003 subsection A, and 18-1701. And that count is also punishable by death or imprisonment for life. And if the death penalty is not pursued, then the court shall impose a life sentence with a minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. Do you understand the charge in count 5 and the possible penalties?
Yes, Your Honor.
Count 6 of the indictment is a charge of first-degree murder. That names Tammy Daybell as the victim. It's charged under Idaho Code 18-4001, 18-204, and 18-4003 subsection A. That count also is punishable by death or imprisonment for life, provided that if the death penalty is not pursued, then the court shall impose a life sentence with a minimum period of incarceration of 10 years. Do you understand count 6 and those possible penalties, Mr. Daybell?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, count 7 of the indictment is not a charge against you, it's a charge against a co-conspirator. Count 8 of the indictment charges you, Mr. Daybell, with the crime of insurance fraud, which is a felony under Idaho Code Section 41-293. That is a felony that carries up to 15 years in prison and a fine of up to $15,000 plus restitution. Do you understand that charge and those possible penalties?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, count 9 is also a charge of insurance fraud under that same statute. It carries the same penalty I just mentioned in count 8, which again is 15 years of prison and a $15,000 fine plus restitution. Do you understand that charge and those possible penalties?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that is a summary then of the charges that have been filed against you and the penalties. I would also note those penalties in each of the counts could be ordered to be served either concurrently, meaning running together, or consecutively. And so do you understand those charges could also run consecutively in those different counts, Mr. Daybell?
Yes, I do.
All right, at this time then, having gone through the counts and the possible penalties, at this point, I would ask your client how he intends to plea. Before I do that, Mr. Pryor, do you have any questions for the court or anything you need to discuss with your client before I ask for the plea?
No, Judge, and I anticipate that my client will be entering a plea of not guilty to all of the charges.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Pryor. I will go through them then individually again. On count 1 of the indictment, Mr. Daybell, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
We'll enter the not guilty plea on count 1. On count 2, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On count 3, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On count 4, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On count 5, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On count 6, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
On count 8, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
And on count 9, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Very well. Not guilty pleas are entered as to all the counts in the indictment. At this time, normally we would discuss a trial setting. I talked to counsel and chambers before we started, and given the nature of the case, we've determined that we'll set a scheduling conference 2 weeks from today to get a trial set. Does your client agree to a scheduling conference in 2 weeks in lieu of a trial setting right now, Mr. Pryor?
Yes, I've discussed that with him, and at this point, Judge, if you need that representation, he will represent that he's agreeable to setting this out for a status conference for the purposes of scheduling this case for further proceedings.
All right, very well. Do you understand then we'll set your trial in 2 weeks in lieu of doing that today, Mr. Daybell?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. We'll hold that hearing on June 23rd. Counsel, any suggestions on time? I'm thinking probably just in the morning at 9:30.
That's acceptable to the defense, Your Honor.
And that works for the state as well, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, I'll set the scheduling conference for June 23rd at 9:30 a.m. We will conduct that hearing by Zoom. That will not be a live in-person proceeding. And at that time, we will get the matter set for a trial on these counts. I believe that concludes the matters we need to bring up on this case this morning. Then, is there anything further from the state on the case today?
Nothing further from the state at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Blake. Anything further from the defense, Mr. Pryor?
Nothing further from the defense. Judge, may we be excused?
You may. Thank you, counsel.
Your
That
Honor.
will conclude the hearing, and we'll be in recess.
All rise.
So, I say in the Facebook, like, shop and swap type groups, because every now and then they are comedy gold.
We should probably post some of these screenshots.
We should post some of these,
I
because
wonder
they're
if
funny.
I could somehow make that a Patreon thing.
We'd
too.
have to get rid of, like, I don't want to, like, violate people's... Well, you're on Facebook and you're in a group. I don't know.
We can cover
We
their
can cover their
names.
names and their pictures just to protect the idiots.
They're not innocent. They're stupid.
No, they're just stupid. So, I see this post. Someone found a picture of a little kid from the early 90s in a little gold picture frame. And they bought it at Goodwill so they could give it back to the family because it must have been donated on accident. I was in a snarky mood.
So what did you say?
I commented, it might not have been donated on accident. Like, I think I said maybe they took it to Goodwill on purpose.
Right.
Like, just purely saying, like, it's possible. And, I mean, I'll admit, I'm a troll.
Mm-hmm.
I like to troll people. I'm not an asshole about it. Like,
Well, and
it's really possible.
quite frankly, stupid people are the ones that fall victim to
Right,
trolls.
right.
So,
So, joke's on you. So, I was the biggest asshole that whole evening.
because the army of Karens rushed in.
Right.
To
To this poor
congratulate.
girl's defense. Good for her for doing something good. She's just trying to be nice.
And then, oh my god, that last name, I know somebody with that last name, I can reach out. Blah, 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 blah. What?
Ultimately,
What was the result?
the photo and frame had been donated to Goodwill on purpose. The family did not want it fucking back. So, I was right. But I had told the girl, I was like, she was like, well, I just didn't know. Like, she said something. I said, well, you do you. You know, just as a, do what you think is best.
Right.
Apparently, you do you is telling people to butt out, according to some Karen on Facebook. And I said, no, like, I wasn't, like I said, I'm not being rude. I was pointing out a possibility. And then the lady sent me the screenshot of my comment, you do you, and said, well, that's rude. That's telling someone to mind their own business. Well, clearly I'm not into people minding their own business, or I would not be commenting on
Right.
this post.
Like, you do you is more like, you believe what you believe,
Right.
I'm gonna think what I think.
Like, come to find out I was right.
Yeah, no, we're pretty magical.
But
Then
there
we-
were lots of, don't listen to the negative Nancys. I'm like,
Nancy.
I'm
Right there.
Nancy, it's fine.
And then we went thrift shopping and made jokes when we saw family heirlooms if we should take pictures and post
Well,
them
and
in the
like, here's
groups.
the thing, like, it wasn't like a 70-year-old picture of someone's great-grandparents. Like, it was very clearly late 80s. I think it even, like, there was a name and a date on the back of the picture, so I think it said, like, 92 or 94. Or,
Yeah.
like, here's the thing, in 1994, we were going to Sears and getting packets of 300 of the same photo. Someone in the family has that photo. It's not like 1925 where this is the only picture we have of Grandma and Grandpa.
And let's face it, it was pretty yellowed and not
It was not. I mean,
It was old.
yeah. There
But
was
not-
no. It wasn't an antique. It wasn't the only photo. Oh no, Diana's whipped out the taco hat. Is it a taco?
It's a taco cat.
Oh, it's a taco cat.
Taco cat spelled backwards is taco cat.
It's kind of fucked up.
So my boyfriend streams on Twitch, and you can make him wear hats.
Yeah, all the hats. I tried to fix it. I don't think it's any better. There it is, taco cat. Does he ever wear the banana suit?
Yeah. Sometimes I'll come in here after like an hour of him streaming, open the door, and he'll be sitting here in the eagle costume with the poop hat on, and I'm just like, what you doing? He was wearing the banana and something else one day. I asked if he wanted me to unpeel him or not. Or repeal him.
Well, you can't peel
Or-
that. Well, the banana you can peel.
Like, undo the peel. Fuck it, I don't know. Anyway.
Repeal him?
Yes.
Maybe? I don't know.
Unpeel.
Well, follow us on the things.
Yes. We will stay updated on the shit show that is the Daybell.
Well, I
Valo.
guess just Daybell now since her attorney
Valo.
somehow got her name legally changed to Daybell even though she's incarcerated.
She's
waiting
Noreen
for-
Valo, aka Daybell, on everything, so F you, it says Valo first.
I'm also just waiting for there to be charges in Arizona.
Why?
Because her brother did not kill her husband in self-defense.
Oh, wait, where's her brother right now to testify?
He died.
Oh.
He died similarly to Tammy, which I think he unalived himself
Ah.
with the same poison that they unalived Tammy with.
I can't. Is that going to come out in the trial then? Are they going to have to. Because if they're talking about Tammy's death, they'll have to bring up.
Right. I think we will learn in the trial how.
I really need to know.
Because there's
the
no way-
exhumation autopsy
There's
results.
no way they charged her with murder without solid autopsy results as to how and why she died. Because, I mean, if they just found a bottle of something that's a regular household chemical under the sink, that's not enough because we all have
Yeah.
that under our sink.
I have poison under my sink. I clean my house.
Right?
Like,
Well, I think we've done this.
yep.
Diana will edit it.
Did way
in a
better than
marvelous-
yesterday.
We did. Yesterday was a shit
Fuck
show.
me.
We had fun, though.
We
That's
did.
what matters.
We did.
Sometimes we just have to do things twice.
So if I set up a Patreon, there's a link on the screen now. And then buy our shit. Because we're funny.
We are funny.
We are actually funny. And
We're just not always appropriately funny. I
well,
mean, the jokes I could have made about this whole thing.
life isn't appropriate.
But I really do. I sympathize. It would be a horrible position for all the family members to be in. And I do not envy them. But I have a warped sense of humor, so I'm an asshole, not a scumbag.
Yeah.
Are we done recording now?